Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to get started. We're going to just give everybody just another 30 seconds to a minute to join us. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. I'm Ellie Mansour. I'm the marketing manager here at Choice Solutions. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce Dana Steinlogge with Choice Solutions. Dana, take it away.
Great, thanks, Ellie, and welcome everybody. Dana Steinlogge, one of the partners on our team here at Choice Solutions, and co-lead up our sales team. On just behalf of our organization, we want to thank you for making time out of your busy schedules this time of year to join us. So super excited about this, and want to dive in. So for those that aren't familiar with our company and our team, do want to share just a couple minutes about our company. A little bit of background for familiarity there, and then we'll dive into some great stuff. So I've always learned that when there's people that are smarter than you amongst you, to make sure and minimize your time to give them the opportunity. So we're super excited about today and the information we're going to be sharing here shortly. So just a quick overview of the agenda. We're going to have a couple speakers, Pi and then Steve Kaplan, sharing with us. And then at the end, we're doing a demo of part of a new technology that Nutanix is offering. So we understand people's schedules are busy and full. So if you got a commitment come up to at the hour or shortly after the hour, and the demo may not make sense right now or be appropriate, and we certainly understand if you need to drop off. So also too, we'll have the Q&A session open. So if you have any questions as we go through stuff, please make sure to ask those, and we will get to those kind of at the end of the different sessions and speaking slots that we've got, and kind of get to those questions that you have. So for those that aren't familiar with our team, our company, we mainly we got offices and people throughout the central U.S. and down in the southeast. We've been very fortunate to serve customers across 34, 35 different states over the last 5 years or so, business-wise. Many of you that are on here, you're from all different parts of the country, and we appreciate you, and we love the opportunity to work with everyone. Just our focus, what we do at Choice, at the end of the day, our focus is to help you and help you adopt simpler, more secure IT environments from the data center or the cloud service all the way out to the endpoint. That's what we're focused on and helping and bring to your business. So, simple cloud architectures. Nutanix has been a cornerstone piece of that for helping with simple cloud architectures, secure digital workspaces. So enabling your workforce, to adapt in 2020's times with work from anywhere. A lot of the technologies that we've had the opportunity to work with customers, they're already in position to enable that shift easily due to a lot of the technologies that we focus on and help partner with your organization on. So, for organizations that when you're looking to explore new technology solutions, we can help with the professional services. We have an outstanding team of in-house resources to help you unlock and kind of get started with those new technology solutions. For IT organizations that have constrained staffs, we have a growing focus in managed IT services as well. So when you have a lack of in-house skill set or just need some extra hands, or however we can complement your business, one of the things that we have, in addition to being a great partner for advanced technology solutions and innovative solutions, we can help with a lot of services to complement and help your team and help you guys be successful. Some of the core technology partners outside of kind of what we're going to be sharing with you today include some of the following. Again, you're helping with that modern workspace for your workforce to be able to enable working from anywhere. That simple, secure IT environment. A lot of these technologies kind of go into that stack, if you will, to help provide that simple, secure IT environment for your business. Specific to Nutanix, we've been a partner with them since I think the 2012 timeframe, and have earned designation as a cloud champion with them. We've got an awesome staff. We've got, so not only a place to look at, but when you go to invest and deploy these technologies, we can help you be successful, not only from the beginning, getting started successfully, but also throughout the life cycle of your investment with Nutanix. So, you know, but one of the biggest things about our team and Choice is just the way in which we do business, and the focus that we have and the care we put into you as a customer. That's our desire from an experience perspective, that we want you to feel, and it goes into the level of care, the quality of people you work with, the level of technical expertise, the focus on strategies for solutions, and just the culture in which we do things. And it's a privilege for me to introduce to you guys our CEO and President, Jim Steinlage.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, everyone, for being on this webinar today. It's going to be an exciting day. We're excited to have two industry experts who have a history of following technology that brings value to the marketplace. And that's much like Choice Solutions from day one. We look at game-changing technology that brings value, and these two guys have done a great job of following that over the years, and longtime friends. Today they'll be sharing an exciting one about simplifying the cloud and saving money doing it, which is, I think we all know that we all like the cloud, but there's a lot of complexities stuff there. But today they're going to be talking about Nutanix Cluster, and it's a solution for Nutanix. It's, again, a market changer. It's going to be exciting to see what they're doing about simplification and automation, because those are two things that also are one of the key elements of bringing value. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Pi, who will be sharing about the Nutanix clusters. And thank you, Pi, for joining us.
You're welcome, Jim. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time today. I've known Choice for many, many years. I've known Jim for more years than I can count in many different companies. So very honored to be here as part of this year's session. I've visited your organization many times over the many years. So glad to do this again this year. And so again, folks, thank you for your time. I know these are difficult times for all of us as we kind of come out of 2020 and look at 2021 in a whole new light, given all the challenges we face. So hope your family is okay. Hope you're all safe and healthy, and best wishes for the holidays as they're coming up in the next week or two. So over the next 30 to 35 to 40 minutes, I'll be sharing my vision about how Nutanix kind of evolved, has completely kind of changed the dynamics of how people are looking at data centers and architectures and hybrid cloud. And the reason that's important for us as a company is because we invented this category of hyperconverged infrastructure. And really that is less about that term, but more about how we recognize in the early days that cloud-like approaches is going to change the way computing is going to be recognized. And so if you look at public cloud, some of the changes that we've implemented have really kind of brought that approach into enterprise data centers. And so the way I put it is, instead of taking and forcing you to take it from your data, take your data from your enterprise data center to the public cloud, we brought that architecture to you. And so we've created a whole new category called hyperconverged infrastructure, invented it, disrupted the market of what we call three-tier architecture, and are leading the market and continue to lead the market ever since there was this category. And so this Gartner segment came out, really, this is less about a marketing slide, but more to show that we continue to drive and innovate and disrupt the traditional ways of how people look at enterprise computing. And we built the entire business as a company. We're in our 11th year right now, evolving into 11th year. And we've grown organically and continue to grow and drive customer satisfaction, but more importantly, customer success in terms of customer support. And that NPS score is not to be trivialized. That number goes from -100 to +100. People aspire to be like a number 60 or 70. We've held that number 90 score and plus 90, 91 for more than 6 years. So that shows that when you become a customer, we treasure that relationship through partners like Choice, and treasure that relationship as you go through your transformation journey. And so we ourselves are going through our own transformation journey. Went from being an appliance company to a software company to a subscription company. As well, at the same time, went from being a hardware appliance company to selling software to scaling cloud-like subscription models. And so just a few days ago, less than a week ago, we got a new CEO to kind of take us through that next journey, next phase of our growth. And so the reason this is important is how do we make sure that we continue to stay relevant to our customers as they are going through these challenges and trying to figure out what is their cloud strategy. And so this is a good testament of how when we look at our customers and they look at their journey, these stats that you'll see over the next few slides really kind of highlight how our customers communicate with us and say, what's their journey look like? And you can find this report called Enterprise Cloud Index on our website, so you don't need to copy it. You'll see all the details behind it on our website. But really at a very high level, what it really shows is hybrid cloud is becoming almost a de facto approach to how enterprises are looking at building their future data center architecture, right? When you look at hyperconverged infrastructure, that 92 number highlights the fact that that has become the foundation block on which they're building their private cloud. When we look at what are they trying to achieve, it's about how do they deliver a better business outcome at a lower cost with better security in a much more agile way. And so that approach of converting hardware to software, building a model that allows you to extend that capability now that you have an architecture similarity to a public cloud, allows our customers to really look at how can I build a hybrid cloud model when I have what is called the legacy of incumbents, which is you've got traditional enterprise applications, while you're in the journey of modernizing them, and what's my hybrid cloud journey look like? And so for us, what we realized is as customers are wrestling with where do I run my applications, we're giving them a very, very logistical path to embrace that approach. And so we have customers running those applications in the public cloud, some are running on-prem, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And so this session, over the next 30 minutes, as you lend me your ears, is what's your journey going to be like? How do you look at where you are today, and how do you live in this tug of war or this challenge of yin and yang of when I look at my infrastructure, look at my application, look at my strategy, what's the right hybrid cloud strategy for my applications? Some applications are predictable, some applications may deserve to be elastic and therefore need to be in the public cloud. Some people may have gone all in the public cloud and realized that the bills are skyrocketing. And Steve Kaplan, who's going to follow behind me, will kind of give you an eye-opening session on how that tends to kind of put people on retreat, or what people call repatriation, right, in repatriating data. So what we are seeing our customers really having a hybrid cloud approach in a multi-cloud world. I know those are all buzzwords, but it's becoming real. And that number 2.3 you see there is a number that's important, because when people go, oh, I'm embracing cloud, it's not one cloud, it's not two clouds, it's 3 clouds. So an average of 2.3 is the number of clouds that IDC has said is how many clouds companies have. So when we look at companies saying, oh, I have a cloud first strategy, it's really a multi-cloud first. And then you figure out which application need to go where. Do I need to refactor? Do I need to contrast? Do I need to lift and shift? So all these are driving an approach where you're like, how do I decide on how do I define what stays on-prem? When it's on-prem, how do I really build a private cloud just like running on a public cloud, software running on x86 hardware, while at the same time, how do I embrace my relationship with AWS and or Azure and or Google? And now I've got silos that now spread across my application, spread across 4 locations. And so for us, when we look at what public cloud has demonstrated and continues to demonstrate in terms of innovation, is the ability for abstracting complexity and delivering everything to an API or software, right? That is the fundamental shift that happened from going from a hardware-centric world to a software and API-centric world. And so when we look at what is Nutanix's core value proposition to our customers, so within Nutanix, I'm part of the customer success organization, and I spend a lot of my time with the largest customers, right? And for them, they're wrestling with the fact that, do I take my data to the public cloud because the agility that it promises and attracts is very attractive to me? But at the same time, how do you respect the fact that I've got these applications that are not ready for that? And so for us, how do we take the design principles of what the hyperscalers have proven is possible and bring that in? And so when we look at all the hyperscalers that you see at the bottom, they're built on an architecture that's self-healing, that's built on scale out, built on no time for downtime, no time for change windows or upgrades, right? Everything is automatic and available all the time. Albeit, if you look at what happened to Google, a couple of days ago, what happened to Amazon on the west side about a week or two, about a month ago, right? Putting all the eggs in one basket or one approach is not a long-term strategy. right? So because, for example, people that were all in on Google, they weren't even able to log in, right? People that were on Amazon couldn't even get their doors open because they were connected to Ring, right? So for us, that multi-cloud approach with an authentic view of what's the right architecture, what's the right strategy, is the approach Nutanix has taken. So for us, it's about where are you today and how can we get you to a destination of truly living in a hybrid cloud world in a multi-cloud way, right? And so if you look at your data center today, that architecture hasn't evolved, tongue-in-cheek since the days of the mainframe. You have a compute farm, a storage farm, a networking farm, a virtualization farm. And so that brings a level of complexity that forces you to isolate applications by architecture, saying this is for a particular SAN stack, this one runs on bare metal, or this one needs to be on an application that's isolated because the performance is important to me, so I'm going to put a lot of high-end hardware to it so I get the right performance for it. So what you start seeing is complexity because you're now isolating applications by tiers. If you look at the public cloud, you don't have this architectural diversity. And so when we look at why can't we bring that architecture simplicity in to customers, that's what attracts customers to go to the public cloud. And now that's a whole different complexity, right? So for us, it's about how do we address those IT challenges where we remove that complexity, remove that siloed approach to deploying applications, remove that siloed approach to doing those mundane tasks. So those abilities is what we see as the enemy, which is complexity is the enemy to execution, complexity is the enemy to clarity, complexity is the enemy to agility. And so if we eliminate those complex layers that cost companies money, you will start realizing that agility becomes a reality even where you are today. So for us, what we are trying to do as a company is how do we deliver a multi-cloud experience that's simple, eliminates all the complexity, seamless, is because you do have a legacy of application that you need to make sure you respect and understand. Secure, because security is not an afterthought, it's a proactive approach on everything that we do today. At the same time, when you decide to extend to a cloud, it's not an inorganic change, inorganic architectural shift. And so for us as a company, how do we build the best control plane where moving to hybrid cloud is one click? Migrating between private and public is one click. Visibility across private and public is across a single pane of glass. The ability to create a single substrate that allows you to create container applications based on Kubernetes and VM based on ESX or Hyper-V or our own hypervisor AHV is seamless and simple. So that is the approach we're taking, where we're telling our customers, where are you today? What's your journey to a multi-cloud world, and what's your journey for building that hybrid cloud bridge? Where do you start, and how do we start automating the capabilities to help you deliver that to your business, to your clients, to your stakeholders? And so what we are trying to do is deliver a platform. So many of you have walked in saying, oh, Nutanix is a HCI company, a VDI company, an appliance company, so on and so forth. What we're really delivering is a multi-cloud operating system that delivers simplicity to deploy applications on any platform for any application in any location. And we look at the screen and look at all the things that we talk about, the ability for our customers to say, I'm going to simplify my infrastructure, simplify my ability to deploy containers, the ability to deploy end user services, be it here or out of the cloud, across any different clouds, both private and public, is the journey we've been on for the last 5 to 7 years. And so we look at what do we do today and where are you today and how do we get on that journey with you and how can you get on the journey with us in choice, is starting with where you are today and transforming and modernizing a data center to allow you to bring that architecture simplicity that's associated with public cloud, which is software built on x86 hardware. So Nutanix's core premise is let's convert the data center that's hardware-centric, silo-centric, isolated by compute storage, networking, and virtualization, and start collapsing those tiers. Then as you start collapsing those tiers even further, when you buy Nutanix, you get a built-in hypervisor for free. And the reason is when you go to public cloud, AWS, Google, Azure, Ali, whatever it is, you don't talk about a hypervisor. It's invisible. It does its job. So the less things you manage, the more agility you get. The less silos you eliminate, the more complexity and cost efficiency you get. more complexity you take out. And so for us, the testament comes when our customers speak out loud and say, this has made a difference for me. So this is an example. Obviously, Home Depot is a storied logo and a household name, right? Think of that, 90% of their virtual workloads are running on Nutanix. So I run the customer advisory board every 6 months for our customers, and we get about 20 to 25 of them. And Home Depot, obviously being who they are, Kevin was on the call just last week, right? And so when we look at what we do for our customers, it's about reducing cost, reducing complexity, reducing TCO, providing the flexibility to run multiple applications off the single platform. So the ability for us to deliver that and start collapsing the silos, be it a SAN silo, be it a NAS silo, be it an objects to deliver archiving and backups, the ability to take a bare metal server and provision storage to that, still off a single pane of glass, so that you can increase the efficiency of what you've already bought. But at the same time, if you need more capacity, it's a plug and play approach. You take a set of servers from any server vendor of your choice, right? We support many different server vendors. The uniqueness of Nutanix is freedom of choice. We're not locked into a particular hardware vendor. We can support Dell servers, Lenovo servers, to any of the server platform that you have today, and allow you that choice, allow you the flexibility, not get locked in a hypervisor, not get locked in an application silo, and still bring the single UI experience across those storage silos, across those hypervisor silos. So when we look at what does this mean to you, when we start eliminating the storage complexity and the hypervisor complexity, like I said before, we start eliminating the complexity of managing hypervisor. Now, we fully respect that you may have a VMware relationship, and a lot of our customers still do, and we maintain that relationship with our customers for VMware. So if you're running VMware today, it just works as is. But at the same time, this is a viable alternative, which means choice helps you be a better competitor, be a better negotiator. So when you buy Nutanix, you get a hypervisor for free that supports pretty much every major application, which means now you can depend on a platform. Instead of having those silos that I talked about earlier, you can start eliminating the storage silos, eliminating those hypervisor silos, eliminating those management silos, and gives you the ability, just like the public cloud, to collapse those tiers built on software off of x86 hardware. So here's another customer, again, a storied name in the US, right? JetBlue Airways, right? All their reservation systems, right, for the last 4 or 5 years have been running on Nutanix. They continue to take all their applications and collapse them onto Nutanix platform because of simplicity, right? And you can see the benefits. There are 7x increase in IOPS, 50% reduction in storage capacity, 75% reduction in data center footprint, right? So those are all tangibles, and the intangibles is the ability to stay up during peak hours, the ability to do non-disturbed upgrades while production is running at peak hours between Thanksgiving and Christmas for retail businesses. So for us, the ability to bring simplicity to an already chaotic on-prem data center that is seen as expensive because then you need to go to the public cloud because it's seen as cheap, we start turning the table saying, okay, what if you bring that simplicity to your data center? Then the choice is yours on where you want to deploy your application and how you want to modernize it at your pace. And so when we look at Nutanix and say, we understand that you have a VMware relationship, we understand their incumbent server vendors, how do we now live in a world where we're able to give you a viable alternative to what you have today and start eliminating cost and complexity? Because within VMware, every one of these layers is a separate management stack. Every one of these layers is a separate certification stack. And so when we look at Nutanix, not only we want to provide you a platform for virtualized applications, as you step into the world of cloud, you're wrestling with containerization, wrestling with going cloud native. And so when you buy Nutanix, you also get the ability to provision and manage and create Kubernetes-based clusters. It's built in, it's available, it's free. So when we look at what does this mean, you can now look at your multi-cloud strategy and say, as I'm wrestling between private and public containerization versus traditional, one platform gives you the ability to simplify both of those. So now when we start looking at modernizing infrastructure, Dana talked about automating IT services, right? So one of the most important things people kind of brush aside is vendors fight for your day zero business, the expenses in days two, day one, day end business, right? That's where sometimes cost skyrockets, is because complexity creeps back in. So within Nutanix, we have a plethora of technologies that allows you to automate IT operations, proactively identify hotspots and eliminate them, give you what if modeling on if you're adding 500 users, do I have enough capacity? When will I run out of capacity? When will I run out of compute? And if so, we give you recommendations. If you look at not looking at just IT operations, database operations, how many instances of databases do you have? How many versions of databases do you have? How many copies of databases do you have? How many copies of backups of the database do you have? That consumes compute, consumes petabytes of storage and backup that is invisible to you. It's just there. What if you're able to automate that entire database lifecycle? So we have technology that allows you to automate entire database operations that makes the life of a database administrator magnitude simpler. And that's called ERA. In addition to that, now that you automate database operations, we also have a technology called COM, which is Cloud Application Lifecycle Management, that allows you to create blueprints for your application deployments so that you can now take all those integrations across third parties, integrations across the VMware stack, third party across private and public cloud, third party integration with ServiceNow, for example, and automate the deployment of an application with 1 or 2 clicks by creating these blueprints. So the ability for you to have that self-service mode to automate applications, automate database operations, automate IT operations becomes very important. And this is an example of the why of it, right? A lot of customers say, look, I want to be like Amazon. It's always like a term people throw out, right? Because the agility and simplicity that they've demonstrated that converts to business value and frankly, valuation of almost $2 trillion, it's not because they're just selling stuff. They've made the entire IT operation so simple and agile that allows them to launch new services, launch new products. The how is, for example, there's this project called Hands Off the Wheel. Go look it up. What it does is it told people to take their jobs and make it redundant themselves. So people that are doing mundane tasks were then over 4 or 5 years automating it through AI and ML. So they could take those people and have them launch new projects. In this case, for example, the person that was doing the retail operations of setting up distribution centers and setting up stores for Whole Foods, for example, turned around and launched Amazon Go. And I was on a call with a customer in the Northwest, and guess who was on the call? That particular person who launched Amazon. He said, hey, that was me, right? So this is real. And the reason I bring this up is people focus on the technology. The easiest thing you can do is buy technology. The hardest thing is to change people's mindset and the processes behind it to automate things that were costing you and costing the company money. And you take those costs out by automating these IT services, you start wrestling agility back into the business. And so here's the example of our own Nutanix on Nutanix, right? This is from our CIO, right? We have automated so many systems. We've done a lot of integration work. We've automated the creation of VMs. We've got bots for approvals, bots for password, integration with ServiceNow in the back end. All these things we've done through automation and bots that allow us to completely change how we as employees are being served, right? Which is a 7-second average time to solve a support issue. I never talk to a support person. Everything is done through a bot, right? That ability for you to take that complexity out and human element out and have the why it takes them 2-3 years to get through the training. This is built 20-30 years ago. This is SpaceX. Better business outcome, more agility, simpler. So you have all the mundane tasks that can be automated, done, and then the astronaut makes the decision. And so the simplicity that Tesla has shown, SpaceX has shown, Amazon has shown, that we always try and emulate and admire. How does it affect your business? What can we do to help drive that kind of agility? So when we look at the next step of, okay, we help you modernize your data center with a clear path of the how, modernize some of the IT services that are costing the company business and day-to-day operations. Then when we look at the public cloud, again, complexity creeps back in. The choice is, do I stay where I am? Do I manage it on my own? Do I give it to a hosting service? Do I go to the public cloud, or do I take the application, put it in the SaaS world? So that evaluation of what is your cloud smart strategy? How do I classify and group application, decide what's the right cloud, what's the right approach so that I'm not focusing on things that may be costing me money, right? That decision and process is where companies and partners like Choice can help you down that journey. And at the same time, what does your new data center look like, given these choices? Given the fact that you now have to connect across 3 different clouds, given the fact that application can reside anywhere, but you're still responsible for the data. So this new data center, respecting the fact that the data is now sitting in a public cloud, is now a new way of how you need to look at your world, right? Now, when we look at Nutanix, how can we help? One of the elements that we've offered up to our customers is many of our customers have a secondary data center that's idle for a DR site, and they're paying licenses, they're paying infrastructure, they're paying all these capabilities for a data center that sometimes may not be used for 2-3 years, but they still need it, right? And so we offer DR as a service for all your VMs running on Nutanix, and is available on a prescription basis. You're going to do as many tests as you want, right, in terms of business continuity processing. It integrates with all your existing infrastructure, with your firewalls, and allows you to protect and set up a very comprehensive DR policy without having the secondary DR site. When we look at your multi-cloud strategy, how and what is your hybrid cloud world look like? Do I refactor? If I do so, what's the risk of migration? How long is it going to take me? Do I have documentation for it? Do I need to maybe modernize it for the next time around? Maybe make it right to a proprietary API in AWS? Do I need to rethink my ecosystem? How do I train these people? Because now I have to hire an AWS specialist, an Azure specialist. And what if I made the wrong? Do I need to repatriate this application? And so we looked at it and said, how do we make that hybrid cloud journey simple? So what we did was we said, instead of making it complex, again, have complexity creep back in, we said, let's make it simple. Let's respect the customer's AWS credentials. Let's respect the customer's AWS networking. Let's respect the fact that you may AWS credits that you may want to use. And what we want to do, and Dwayne, who will follow up with Kaplan, demonstrate this for you. With 1 to 5 clicks, you can provision our software to run in an AWS bare metal inside the AWS cloud, off the AWS networking that you have today, off the same VPNs, off the same VPCs, so that now you treat an Amazon cloud as an extension of your data center. And the same way you manage a virtual machine running on, say, a HP server locally running on running Nutanix, it will now have an application running on an AWS bare metal server running on Nutanix, running with Nutanix. It's that simple. So for us, the key value propositions are, we don't want to introduce complexity back in. We want the ability for you to say, if I have a license on-prem, I want to be able to port that license to the public cloud. When I'm done with that, I want to bring it back in. I don't want to add another management pane. I want all the capabilities that I have on-prem to be extended to the public cloud. I don't want to refactor my application because I want to go to public cloud as quickly as possible. I don't want to go to this massive networking reconfiguration because that tends to be the hairiest ball, right? So those are the eliminated capabilities we want to bring to deliver that one-click hybrid cloud experience. And the benefit is, instead of taking months or even years for some of the largest organizations to build and deploy and execute a hybrid cloud strategy, you can do it in weeks and months. And that simplicity delivers significant value for our customers. So when you look at what does it mean for us and what does it mean for you, it really eliminates risk. It's like if you make a decision and you want to come back, it's easy to come back in, right? It leverages existing cloud credits. For example, if you have an AWS credit or Azure credits, it respects that. You don't have to go buy new managed services. It allows you to live in a multi-cloud world because it's the same software that you're running on-prem now runs in AWS and soon will run in Azure. So the commonality across multi-cloud to build that hybrid cloud approach becomes very easy. You can port a license from on-prem to AWS, and then done with that, you can move it from AWS and port the license back into Azure, for example. So that portability allows our customers to look at a variety of different use cases saying, I need on-demand elasticity where I just need capacity for the next few months. Spin up a license over there, run an application for a period of time, maybe run 300, 400 VDIs there, and then bring it back on when that burst is done. Business continuity, this tends to be one of the biggest uses where I want to use, public cloud credits for DR. Why not? Now remember, latency matters. All that stuff matters. So, let's not trivialize the need for how DR needs to happen and needs to work for your business, right? Lift and shift. If you want to take an application, run it in the public cloud and use those credits, you can do that. So our ability to extend that not just to AWS, but also to Azure. So now as we start looking at what does a multi-cloud substrate look like across a single management plane, still giving you portability, that's what we're building. So when you look at Nutanix, how do we now integrate with AWS capabilities? How to integrate with your Azure capability, Azure public clouds across the spectrums of managing virtual machine, creating and managing containers, provisioning that across private and public, making sure that data, irrespective of where it is under your control, under your management, respecting the fact that we don't want to introduce complexity in networking and security. Because some of the things, I was in a call with a European customer last week, and they want to embrace Azure, and the CISO wanted to know if my data is going to sit in the public cloud, is it encrypted? Because I'm a bank in that example, right? So those are the things that we respect and understand. And when you embrace Nutanix, that capability of what you have on-prem gets extended. Your security policies get extended to that application sitting in the public cloud. So what we want to do is really bring that portability, the capability to treat public cloud as an extension of your data center, extension of IT governance policies, extension of your security policies, extension of your data governance policies. That ability really cannot change. It's because architecture matters, design matters, flexibility matters, and choice matters. So what we want to do is continue to extend this capability so that when you look at Nutanix and look at where you are today, what's your journey going to look like? Our journey continues to evolve as a company. We ourselves went from being an appliance company to a software company to a subscription company. So the transformation is not just you. We ourselves are going through that as an organization, right? And so when you want to test it out, we made it easy for you, right? We have this thing called Test Drive, where you can go in to testdrive.nutanix.com. We will guide you through how you want to provision an application. There's a 30-day free trial that you can get from choice, or you get a single free node, or go through a POC for your application, working with choice and making sure that you're the right approach is taken to validate in your environment based on your particular needs. So I want to kind of pause here and then pass it on to Jim in a minute. But what Kaplan is going to touch on is really this perception that public cloud is cheap and easy. Now, you see an example of why people are embracing hybrid cloud. In the recent AWS reInvent, actually AWS opened up Outposts to now run on-prem at a lower footprint, right? So they recognize that hybrid cloud is here to stay. So the question for you is, what's your journey towards a multi-cloud hybrid world? So with that, I will pause and pass it on to Jim. Jim?
Thanks so much, Pi. It's great hearing you talk about the word choice so much, because that's what Choice Solutions was founded on, the value of always bringing choices to people. So you did a great job of resonating that. Do have a question for you that I pretty incredible, the Gartner report. Of course, that's 4 or 5 years in a row you've been there, but there was something significant this year that there was 3 vendor hardware, Dell, Cisco, and HPE were no longer on this list, whereas designation. Can you share why and the significance of that?
Of course, thanks, Jim. Yeah, that report actually came out just last Thursday, right? So it was less than a week ago. And it was really a testament to software eating hardware, right? If you look at what's important is the differentiation, what public cloud has demonstrated is that software running on x86 hardware is what matters, not the hardware itself. So when you go to Amazon, you don't think about what hardware it runs on. You know, when you go to Azure, the infrastructure underneath is almost irrelevant or invisible, right? And so when you look at HCI as a foundation block to building your private cloud and building your bridge to building that hybrid cloud approach, the clarity that HCI is software and not tied to any hardware was very, very important, because cloud is about software, not about hardware. Private cloud should be about software, not about hardware. And so when we look at the differentiation of the vendors tying their hardware revenue and associating with HCI, kind of muddled the clarity that was missing for what is this industry really about. And with this new Gartner report and the clarity that it brought, it clearly showed to the customers of Gartner and the way they look at the market that HCI is about software, not about selling people's hardware.
Thank you, Pi. I know one thing that CIOs and executives always hate is be locked in. So you resonated about giving people choices, and that's where the software solutions in the Gartner report, with only you guys out in forefront to bring choices to the customers. So thank you very much. With that, I'd like to introduce a longtime friend of mine. I've known him since the mid-90s or plus, and when I first got to know him, he was doing the same thing I was. He's owning a business. Of course, he's owned a couple since then, but Steve's been incredible around not only several game-changing technologies over the years, and now he's tremendous around financial numbers. And again, I grew up a finance person, and these things are very meaningful in this day world with the way things are going. That I know everybody likes to go to cloud, but they go, oh my gosh, the cost of it and so forth. So with that, I'd like to introduce to Steve Kaplan, who's going to share about some very significant numbers you're going to find about how you can save money with the cloud. So Steve, it's all yours.
Great, thank you, Jim, and really appreciate the opportunity to be speaking here. Like Jim said, I've known him a long, long time, and if I started and sold businesses, he's kept on building Choice into be an incredible organization that I've continued to be in awe of. So Stephen Kaplan, better known on Twitter as @ROIDude. You know, over the years, there's been this tremendous momentum and growth of public cloud since AWS debuted in 2006. Last quarter alone, it did over $11 billion in sales. And you know, Pi talked about the complexity and the cost and the lack of scalability and so on of the legacy SAN-based architecture. Well, you combine that with the huge momentum of public cloud, and there's a lot of pressure out there for organizations of all sizes to shift to public cloud. And during my frequent conversations with organizations across the globe, you know, they'll tell me things like, we have a cloud mandate, or they'll tell me proudly, we have a cloud first policy. Sometimes I'll even hear things like, we want to be 70% in public cloud by 2024. I mean, you know, where do numbers like that come from? And, you know, as an analyst, I like to take a step back and evaluate people's strategic decisions. So my question to these people making this type of leap is simply why? What type of analysis and research went into these choices? And I'll hear, you know, responses from things like, well, the CIO told me to do it, to, you know, the board thinks it'd be a great idea, to by far the most common one, we want to save money. But rarely are these types of reasonings backed by data, you know, by critical thinking about, again, as Pi said, a cloud smart strategy. And workloads in public cloud are expensive, at least for predictable workloads, which just so happen to make up the majority of workloads for most organizations. IDG Research, the State of IT Modernization 2020, says that nearly 7 in 10 of organizations have experienced higher than expected cloud costs. The Flexera 2020 State of the Cloud report says that 82% of organizations struggle with managing cloud spend and over budget by an average of 23%. And it's not a question of just being smart. You know, NASA, which is full of rocket scientists, according to this article in the Register earlier this year, when they negotiated their $65 million a year contract with AWS, they somehow forgot about data egress, you know, downloading data back off of NASA's website. So in addition to the $65 million a year contract with AWS, they now have to pay $30 million a year for data egress. I oversee a team of business analysts at Nutanix across the globe, and we help customers evaluate disruptive technologies like public cloud, hybrid cloud, of course, Nutanix technologies. And this was analysis we did recently, a couple of months ago, for one of our customers, a large community bank in the Northeast, and they got the mandate from high up the IT department, we got to go to cloud. And they're already partly in public cloud, but got this mandate to go all the way in. So they asked us to do a TCO analysis showing what would be the cost of moving, you know, more workloads into public cloud. And that's what you're seeing here, comparing Nutanix versus the public cloud. And we showed them, you know, 5-year projected cost of moving these additional workloads, 1.6 million almost versus 379,000 of keeping them on premises on Nutanix. And they were actually so impressed that they went back and then evaluated their workloads in public cloud and brought a lot of them back on premises. Pi spoke about some of the other public cloud challenges, you know, the resiliency issues that were highlighted yesterday by Google going down. And there's also, because you're sharing infrastructure, there's noisy neighbor issues, there's performance challenges, especially mitigated by people having to go to a much more expensive tier of storage to get the IOPS they need. There's all kinds of security challenges in public cloud. The IDG report, again, that I mentioned earlier, says that 49% of organizations in public cloud are struggling with managing public cloud security. You know, the staff that you've built up over years or decades even in the policies don't necessarily translate to public cloud. And a big example of that, an unfortunate example, is the Capital One security breach of 100 million records earlier in the year. And, you know, they were an AWS poster child, yet they had this massive security breach. They had an $80 million fine plus all the negative publicity that comes with that. And that all stems from simply a misconfigured server. Again, the complexity issues in public cloud, which using their tool sets, right, their APIs, the invoices alone can run to dozens of pages. A lot of people don't think about the risk of going to a public cloud cul-de-sac, and these are all challenges with public cloud natively. And you know, so what do you do if you're in a specific public cloud who then starts competing with you, or maybe they raise their prices, maybe not a whole lot overall, but they just so happen to really impact you negatively, or they miss their SLAs, or they have security challenges, or whatever. It's very difficult and time-consuming and expensive to try and move to a different public cloud. And then there are even mundane concerns such as accounting rigidity, the inability as of January of last year to now capitalize your public cloud contracts. Tim Crawford is a CIO, strategic advisor, and I really like this tweet by him earlier this year because it kind of highlights some of the challenges of migration that people don't think about. You know, until that last workload leaves your on-premises data center, you're paying for both environments, the on-prem and then the high rent cost for your predictable workloads of public cloud, and of course for the staff to manage both of them. Last week I heard about a CIO who said he wants to move all 14 of his data centers to public cloud over the next 5 years. Well, my first question to him, would be, if I was speaking with him, is, have you done an analysis? Does the CFO know just how much this is going to cost the organization? And my second question would be, do you really think you're going to be able to move everybody to public cloud? Because that's extremely difficult for a large enterprise. And as Pi talked about, the Economic Cloud Index shows that 86% of organizations, and this is 3,400 IT professionals from across the globe, they consider hybrid cloud to be the ideal operating environment. And I've seen that echoed by essentially every analyst report. As a result of the high cost of predictable workloads in public cloud and all these other types of challenges, there's a lot of applications that come back out. IDC did a large study published mid last year of 2,211 enterprises in public cloud, and they found that 85% of them had repatriated one or more applications back on-prem, and IDC projected that 56% of all lift and shift applications will come back out over the next 2 years. I recently did a podcast with Simon Taylor, who is CEO of the backup vendor Haiku, and he told me, Steve, 40% of our public cloud services offering or engagements are to bring customers back from public cloud back on-prem. I've co-authored 8 books on Citrix and VMware over the years. Last year I came out with my first solo book, The ROI Story, a guide for IT leaders. Mark Templeton, the longtime CEO of Citrix, graciously wrote the foreword. And the book is geared toward helping IT professionals utilize a financial analysis framework, not just for evaluating disruptive technologies, but for the ones that make sense, and how do you build a compelling case around them in order to galvanize organizational consensus in order to get the monies you need to deploy those technologies. And in the book, I give a very kind of detailed 10-step guide of how you do a TCO analysis comparing public cloud and all the attributes that go with it. But while public cloud is complex, hybrid cloud, there's way more involved. I wrote an article for Forbes earlier this year about just how important it is to use, again, a financial analysis to determine and build an optimal hybrid cloud strategy. And Nutanix, of course, Pi talked about Nutanix Clusters. It just went GA in August, but it's already won the CRN 2020 Tech Innovator Award. It's, again, as Pi said, taking our HCI software, putting it into public cloud, running in bare metal, but it just is so extraordinary in the capabilities. It essentially mitigates all of the challenges I spoke about earlier. Pi mentioned very fast migration to public cloud, no refactoring, no new IT staff. And by the way, the example I gave earlier of the bank comparing the TCO versus on-prem and Nutanix, that didn't even include application refactoring. The license mobility that Pi spoke about, same IT operations, same IT governance, same security policies, same tool sets, and so on. Oops. An interesting thing happened, I guess it was a few months ago now, just kind of as Clusters was going GA, we started doing some analyses of them. And on my team, Tim McCallum gave me a call on a Friday evening and said, hey, Steve, I've done 3 analyses now of Nutanix Clusters versus public cloud native. And it's a crazy thing, but it's coming in considerably less expensive. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. How could you pay for the cost of cluster software and you're paying for your public cloud cost? How could your total summation of them be reduced? And, so he told me his logic and so on. I spent the next couple of days on the weekend working about it, and I gave him a call Sunday evening, and I said, I think you're right. And I said, this is pretty incredible. In fact, this could kind of be a little bit of a game changer for Nutanix. And so one of the reasons why this is the case is because of what Tim termed micro waste, which means public cloud has these instances that are specifically sized in terms of vCPU and memory. And if your VM doesn't fit exactly in that instance, which most don't, you have a tiny little bit of resources left over. Now, an individual VM basis, it doesn't matter, who cares? But when you aggregate this across a lot of VMs, it can add to a lot of money, which in Nutanix Clusters case, running on bare metal, get to utilize all those resources. And the analogy I give is U-Haul. They're going to charge you a set price for the day or the week. They don't care, if you put a suitcase in that or if you fill it up with a boat. Well, what Nutanix Clusters does is it lets you fill up those instances, pack them full of VMs. There's also CPU oversubscription. Again, the public clouds tend to limit you typically 2 to 1. On premises with Nutanix Sizer, which sizes your environment automatically, the default is 6 to 1. In some cases, you can go larger. So again, with this type of capability with clusters, you're able to save a lot of money there. There's all kinds of storage challenges, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of performance with public cloud running on SSD drives or HDD drives. Running in bare metal, running on NVMe, we're able to get far more storage efficiency. Plus, we're including now compression and dedupe and thin allocation. So again, now on the storage side, organizations tend to save a lot of money. And then finally, the whole ability to automatically turn down your VMs that aren't being used, port the data over to an inexpensive medium like S3, and then when you need to do it, click the VMs automatically rehydrated, and you're back up and running. So you add all 4 of these capabilities together, and as I mentioned, it can make a significant savings. This is an actual analysis we recently did for a customer. We gave them a lot of different options. On the far right-hand column was Nutanix Clusters. On the far left-hand column was 3-tier, legacy SAN-based. And in this particular example, the Nutanix Clusters in AWS was a little bit more expensive than the 3-tier environment. There are a lot of situations where it will actually come in less. It was considerably more than the Nutanix on-prem, but it was millions of dollars less than the 2 public cloud providers. And not too long ago, when I first that Sunday evening, when I had gone through the numbers and crunched them about Nutanix being less expensive than public cloud, actually one of the first things I did is I texted a CIO of a longtime Nutanix customer that had followed me over Nutanix, as a lot of my former clients did, and I told him, because I knew they had a mandate to go to public cloud. I said, you might want to check this out. It's looking like you can save money. And they had recently hired a new head of enterprise of cloud and infrastructure security who came from a native public cloud environment. In fact, he held patents for some of the stuff he did in public cloud. And I assume the CIO made him meet with me. I don't think he would have on his own. He gave me 20 minutes. And at the beginning, he made it pretty clear that he was in favor of cloud native. But by the end of the 20 minutes, he told me, we want to do a Nutanix Clusters pilot. We want it now. We want to partner with you. And what changed his mind so quickly was that they were unionized, and he wants to get to cloud fast, and they would have a problem because he can't force their IT staff to go learn about public cloud. And even if he could, they didn't have the resources, the monies to backfill those people, plus add the other augmented people they would need. So when he realized that with clusters, he could use the same exact staff, the same operating model, the same IT governance, same security policies, and just move to public cloud very, very quickly, that's what made him real excited. The monetary savings, that's icing on the cake, but the quickness to get to public cloud and the ease of management, that's what sold him on it. And so I want to, again, thank everybody. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thanks, Steve. It's great information around the financial value of those solutions. You guys make it all look so simple, and much like with Pi speaking about the product and the solutions. And in the past, we've both been in, when new products come out, what's the biggest nightmare we have? Well, there's betas this and there's beta that, and there's all those headaches. And what do you see? It's incredible the years, the net promoter score that you guys have kept. What do you see? How you guys have been able to keep such incredible, it just works philosophy. How have you been able to do that over these years so well?
Jim, I have no idea. Like you, I come from a channel. I mean, look at the SAN. SAN's been around forever, and yet the still biggest call, at least when I was in the channel part, that we always dreaded getting is our SAN is down. Despite all the resources and everything poured into SANs. I don't know how Nutanix does it. You know, I would say really the reason why is because of this software focus. You know, when you turn everything into software, from storage to automation to database management, it becomes a lot easier to manage, to control, to proactively utilize, you know, machine learning, which we do, and natural language processing, and so on, to build an incredibly resilient system. But yeah, Net Promoter Score of 90 over 6 years now is almost beyond belief, especially when you look at all our massive multi-billion-dollar competitors and struggling with low NPSs. So yeah, I'm just blown away and amazed that as our portfolios continue to grow, we've continued to maintain that very high standard, and not just externally, internally too, with our own IT department, very high NPS. In fact, when we went to work from home, the number of support calls nearly quintupled, and yet they didn't hire any more IT staff and handled everything without, and the NPS still stayed extremely high.
Thank you for now. I think turn it over to Ellie. I believe we've got another presentation coming.
Yeah, thanks everybody. So Dwayne, if you're ready, you can go ahead and take the floor, but just let me know whenever you're ready. I think you're muted, but let me make sure that you're unmuted. Okay,
yeah,
you should be good to go, Dwayne.
I was sharing the other screen. I don't know what. Let me, oh. Let's start screen sharing. It allowed me to share the screen a second ago, but now it's the other one.
We can see a present screen.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yeah, we can see a present screen.
Sounds good. All right, well, yay, printers, projectors, and web conferencing. All the fun stuff. I'm Dwayne Lessner. I hail from the technical marketing team at Nutanix, and the NPS score is kept high because they keep me away from customers, so that's the added bonus. So what we are looking at for the demo portion is our clusters portal, and you can see we have a variety of clusters that are deployed. Some are hibernated, so those have been shut down. All of their data is stored in S3. Really good for test dev environments. We have lots of customers that are taking this up if they have UAT environments that need to mirror their production. And then we have this one that's running in Frankfurt, and you can see this one in Montreal. I hail from Canada, but the other side of the country. So what we're going to do first is go into organization. And so some of the power of clusters is the ability to deploy anywhere. And so if we go to our cloud accounts, we already have one set up, but we could add an additional one. And you know, here it's AWS. When we have Azure support, you know, you'll see that in the drop down as well. And so here you can limit where you want to deploy clusters. So really, you know, you can get up and running anywhere in the world. If you're oil gas, maybe you have an IoT initiative that you need to be spread out. So you get quite a bit of flexibility. On the flip side, you can prevent people from deploying random clusters to Mumbai, as an example. So you set up your account, and then you're off to the races, really. You can start deploying. And so because of native networking, you can integrate into an existing environment quite easily. And we do believe that most customers do have existing cloud environments. And so that means they've also done a lot of groundwork and security in those environments. And so we should be able to slot right in. And so I will just call it Seal. Still struggling for a name there, but anyway, pick a cloud provider. I'm going to pick Frankfurt. Frankfurt, the only reason is because I have a VPN set up. We really don't care how users connect into the environment, whether it's VPN, direct connect, transit gateway, whatever they want to use on the AWS side, they're more than welcome. This create new option will do all of the plumbing for a new environment. It will do the public and private subnets, NAT gateways, and so kind of like a one-step shop if you don't really have a lot of prior AWS knowledge, but you can do it yourself. And here we're going into an existing environment. So here's my Nutanix VPC and a management subnet. And down below here is a little bit extra on the engineering side, but so you can see a wide variety of instance types to meet your ROI that Steve just gave, so some flexibility there. i3 for maybe bursting VDI, maybe i3N for high performance database workloads, which could be more cost effective than doing EBS as an example. And so pick the number of hosts, how many copies of data, so your traditional applications are able to have high availability in the cloud. The security key is coming from your AWS portal to lock down secure communication to the storage controllers. And then you pick your AOS version. You can pick Pro or Ultimate from CBL. You can also use a file license. So if you just wanted a standalone cluster, you get file licensing, you could use that. Now, here is some security integration with AWS. And so right out of the box, you don't need any additional products, though I'm sure we'd be happy for you to use our microsegmentation product Flow, and it would enhance the security, but we don't want to force customers into anything. And so by allowing this, we are going to create 3 security groups for Nutanix clusters that will help block and deny traffic to the cluster and the virtual machines that get deployed on it. So that can be a pretty big benefit as well, just out of the box. And then on the advanced settings here, if you're doing test and dev, you can schedule the cluster to get terminated, or in my case, I just I don't want to leave this thing running for days on end. So you do get a nice little printout of what you selected here, making sure that we said we're going to blow this thing up afterwards, sky high. And so we'll hit create. And regardless of cluster size, in about 30-40 minutes, you can have a cluster running anywhere in the world. And that's step 1, is you have the cluster deployed. And the only other thing that you need to do, you do need to give your cluster some networking. And so if we go into my AWS portal, bypass the security. I do apologize. I had another meeting before, so I don't know all of the ins and outs that were prior to talk to you. So if you have any questions, please blurt them out. VPC. Every time I say VPC, I want to start singing Michael Jackson 1, 2, 3. But subnets. So we are going to create a subnet. The naming doesn't have to matter. We just want to pick something that's free. So I'll do 97. We're going to add the subnet to our existing environment. Seal. Same availability zone as our cluster. Give that a 97. Hit create. And so we're creating a native AWS subnet. And so once we add this into our cluster that's already deployed, any workloads that will come up there will have a native IP to contact any other AWS service. No additional overlays. So here we're logging into that Acme database cluster that we saw in Frankfurt. we are going to, and if you have logged into a cluster before, you will kind of notice that it's the exact same, and that is the beauty of it. There's not any relearning, retooling. Customers can just get to work, and it kind of goes with, from a use case perspective of what you can do, should be pretty easy. So here's the different model types. So we're integrated with the Nitro cards. We're going to go to networking, network configuration, create a subnet field, and I'm just making it different just to show that it doesn't have to be the same. Add in our subnet, hit save, and we have a cluster deployed, ready to work, and deploy apps. Now we can move applications. We have a wide variety of ways to do that. I'm not going to go into move here today, but we do have move for non-Nutanix environments. And interestingly, now you can actually, once you have clusters up and running, if you want to consolidate and get best use of your infrastructure, you can actually take your EC2 VMs and move them onto Nutanix. Likewise, we do give the option to go the other way. You could go from clusters to EC2 or from any cluster. So I kind of just pointed out as the Switzerland, at least from a hybrid cloud perspective. And in after Christmas, you will also see support for Azure with this tooling. But native customers can just use Prism Central or traditional DR. So here we have an on-prem HV cluster in Prism Central. We have our Frankfurt cluster, and we also have a vSphere cluster sitting in Phoenix, Arizona, all being managed with Prism Central. So, one-stop shopping. And here, if we take a look at we have protection policies and recovery plans. So when you think Leap, think DR orchestration. We also have Leap, which is just a managed service. And you can kind of use it how you want to protect your cluster. But we're going from on-prem to AWS. We have a protection policy. And if we look at this one, vSphere to AWS, we're going from our vSphere cluster. So we're using Croft's hypervisor DR to move the workload. We'll go update. We can see on the policy side that we're using categories at the bottom. And so, we can have multiple Nutanix clusters with one policy protecting the workload. So it's quite powerful, the ability to use tags, going from vSphere to our Acme database. Now, as far as DR goes, whatever science will allow will be kind of the judging point on what we can use from a DR perspective. We can do near sync, we can do minutely. Even when you get two clusters deployed in AWS, you can use synchronous replication between them, put them in different AZs. And then we have this nice step schedule that you can use for rollup. And it kind of, if you squint really hard, you can see the 15 minutes, 24 hourly, 7 dailies show up there. So a pretty easy way to actually get your workloads replicated, and it's built in. So when you upgrade through LCM, you're upgrading everything. You're not having to install additional tooling and more importantly, manage it as well. And then, so the next step is the recovery plan. We look at enterprise shuffle. The recovery plan is how we're going to orchestrate the failover, give it a name, a fancy description. Here, we have two stages. We could add a delay, not entirely sexy to watch that, so we usually leave it off. And then you can actually add scripting in as well if you want some more fancy-dancy automation built in. And then the network setting side is where we can do the network mapping. So we're actually mapping vSphere port groups and matching them to our HV cluster in AWS. By default, we use something called the offset method, which if you have a SQL server, say .200, it will, when it gets moved, it will also be .200 in the new subnet if that IP is free. That's the default functionality. So you will know the IPs before you fail over, but if that doesn't meet your needs, you can always do custom IP mapping, so you can change it to So whatever kind of works out for you, we'll hit done here. Actually, just hit cancel. And then the last step is just to run the failover. Failover. Planned and unplanned. Planned is something bad happened. Maybe you let Pi in your data center and you thought he was an administrator, so you can do that. But planned failover is going to shut down the virtual machines and then snap them one more time and then replicate them. So we're going from vSphere to our AWS cluster. We have 2 VMs, we hit failover, and we're going for lunch. You know, lift and shift, mission completed, so to speak. We'll let this kick in. I don't have my other side licensed properly, so it will spit out a nice error for us. But actually, while that's running, if we go back to the cloud portal and we look at some additional options, we have hibernate, update capacity. Now, so you can burst your cloud resources, which is, I guess, is like the difference from on-prem. Even though the cloud isn't limitless, it sure feels that way to the average Joe. And the other thing that's kind of neat in here is that this cloud portal is all API driven. So if we go to organizations, cloud accounts, or users, and so I could add anyone here on the call into my own environment, but I could add the API user. And once I have that, in Prism Central, we offer, there's the warning, we offer this playbook functionality where you can automate the hibernation or auto expanding. So if we go create playbook, I can respond to an alert from Prism Central. I can do it manually. If I have that UAT environment, maybe at 5 o'clock at 6 p.m. every Friday, I'm shutting that down, saving the money. Then come, you know, Monday morning at 5 a.m., I'm turning it back on as an example. If you wanted something a little bit more fancy, you could find an alert. So one of the alerts that is like, maybe I'm running out of memory on my cluster. And so then I can add an action. That action could be API call, or it could be maybe a script that I want to run. So a lot of flexibility here on how to, you know, automate your cluster. I'll I guess open it up for questions, and then I can dig deeper into other areas.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them in the questions panel. As of now, we don't have any questions, but Pi or Steve, did you want to add any color?
I mean, nothing to close out. If Jim or you know, Dana can join as well. I think at a very high level, I'm hoping that what we were able to communicate through Choice is kind of the vision and the strategy about how to build hybrid cloud, the thoughtful approach on how we can make sure that when we do so, we are saving and continuing to save you money and giving you options and architecture approaches that helps you optimize the best hybrid cloud experience. And at the same time, the simplicity and kind of the ability for Dwayne to have shown that you can build that bridge into an AWS cluster, in this case, very simply and easily, you know, within an hour or two, and start building a cluster in AWS Clusters Cloud is orders of magnitude simpler than, you know, weeks, if not months, of work that needs to get done to deliver that kind of simplicity. So I'm hoping that, you know, there's 37 of you there, that some of you walked away with a glimmer of, you know, excitement about what this could mean for you. And like I said, any questions, we're happy to answer. If not, Jim and Dana, I'll pass it on to you for some final closing thoughts.
Pi, there was a question that came in on just that license transition journey and to support clusters. I don't know if that's something you'd like to share on just what that looks like for customers.
Yeah, could you repeat that question again, Dana? Maybe Kaplan or I, what license portability was it?
Yeah, just the journey on the licensing transition. How can a customer make use of Nutanix clusters in like currently AWS?
Yeah, so when you engage with Nutanix and you buy a license of our software to run on a particular choice of hardware that you may have, right? You buy a software license from us, right? That license is now portable, which means if you choose to take that license for that application and choose to run that application in the public cloud, you can take, let's say you bought 50 licenses. You can take 3 of those licenses and run them in AWS. So you now have 47 run on-prem, right? So the ability for you to port those licenses off the single My Nutanix portal, where all your licenses are kept, allows you the flexibility of saying when you're done with those 3 licenses in AWS, you can bring them back in and repurpose that for your on-prem environment. So that flexibility of portability is very unique because you're not locked in. So for example, with our competitor, you have to go through a specific managed service. That means you get locked in on a whole new set of licenses you may have to buy in addition to ELA that you may already have. With us, what we're giving is the flexibility of if you buy a pool of licenses from Nutanix through you folks, then you can use the licenses in any cloud, irrespective of whether it's on-prem or whether it's a choice that you make to run in the public cloud. For us, we want to treat AWS as an extension, as another infrastructure environment to get the flexibility. So hopefully that answers. And Kaplan, if you want to add any color to that, you're welcome to.
Nope, you did a great job.
Hey, Steve, I got a question for you. I know there's a lot of doubting Thomases out there around, oh yeah, you should put up those numbers. And obviously you use the customer's numbers when you put those reports together correctly. And what kind of effort does it take for them if he wants to go to the CFO and say, look, this is a meaningful thing, we can show you value or whatever. What's their effort and how do they go about doing this?
Well, I think it depends on how in-depth they want to get. Like I mentioned in my book, Chapter 8, give a 10-step analysis to doing a TCO for public cloud and considering a lot of factors that people often don't think about, connectivity costs and so on. So I would recommend going through that. And the Nutanix cluster side is pretty straightforward. You just have to know bare metal instances and so on, and put together analysis. It's clusters in particular are so new, we really haven't coached people outside of our team yet on doing these analyses, but we're very happy to assist anybody who wants to do it. Over time, we'll come up with kind of more self-service type of tools and examples that people can do it more easily themselves. But the big thing is to start. There's just way too many organizations out there that, like the one I mentioned, the guy who wants to consolidate 14 data centers to public cloud, that have these grandiose migration visions that are going to affect every possible person or part of the organization, can be extraordinarily expensive, and they do almost no analysis of what that's going to look like. So yeah, start out. It isn't rocket science. You can go on the website of all the public cloud providers, see what the cost is going to be, and start from there.
Yeah, so let me add to that, Jim. So if you're already in the public cloud, folks, and you have opaqueness within your environment about how much it's costing you, right? We have the ability to deliver a SaaS-like service. It's called Beam. If you go to Nutanix, there's beam.nutanix.com. You can subscribe to a service. I think there's a free trial version that you can get through Choice. They will help you kind of guide you through that. It allows us, it's a SaaS application. You put in your credentials, and within, I think, 2 to 5 days, we collect enough data to allow us to give you a very clear UI level view, very simple view of where you are spending your money, who is consuming it, which particular service within Amazon, for example, is consuming it, which of their are pay-as-you-go, which of those instances, and gives you options to save money. And so if you're already in the public cloud and wrestling with cost spiraling and not knowing where it's going, there's definitely ways we can help you both for where you are today, and it actually gives the optionality of if you chose to run that application in an on-prem environment, how much would you save? Just like what Kaplan talked on an ROI perspective, it's the visceral view of your environment of looking at your public cloud costs and saying, do I have an option to come out? And the answer is yes, you do. First, let's get visibility of it, then develop the optionality of how you want to manage it.
Cool. Thank you.
So we did have another question, and one of the things that we've been really excited about, obviously Dwayne was able to show clusters in AWS, which is generally available, but Nutanix also made an announcement a few months ago on the partnership and where you guys are going with Microsoft and Azure, and that's been a big focus for us and something we've been investing heavily in growing competencies and growing value for customers. I understand that a lot of what you kind of Dwayne just shared in the experience, look and feel with the clusters in AWS will be similar to what clusters in Azure will be, but I didn't know if there's Pi or Steve, if there's anything in addition to what Dwayne shared on just kind of the Microsoft announcement and the partnership that you'd like to share.
I mean, so one of the beauties of the elegance of the architecture is you want the user experience to stay the same, right? So whether you are going to AWS or whether you're going to Azure, other than some nuances on how Azure interoperates with our software, the UI experience coming out of Prism is pretty much the same, right? I'm sure Dwayne's on the line and he can share that because he's been intimately involved with some early access customers as well as some early deployments of Nutanix and Azure, right? And so what we want to make sure is when you extend that experience to say, I'm in AWS and Azure or Azure alone, we want to make sure that the experience you saw on AWS stays 80% of the same when you go to Azure. So that's number one, right? Number two is one of the things with Azure is we will also be integrated with the Azure Marketplace. So in addition to respecting Azure credits and Azure credentials and Azure networking and all the things that typically vendors pass on to their customers in terms of cost and services and complexity, we're taking on that burden to make it continues to stay simple, right? So we're also integrating the Azure Marketplace, for example. Besides those credits and all that stuff, integrate the Azure Marketplace. So that's an additional value for companies like Choice, where customers can then go obtain a license from Marketplace, and you folks as a partner can benefit from that simplicity as well. So a lot of ways that we're trying to improve that hybrid cloud journey for our customers from AWS and Azure, and eventually all the other cloud providers. Okay.
And I would just like to add to that, we're also on the Citrix clusters on Citrix Ready Marketplace. So we've already gotten big organizations behind us.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Dana, one final thing. The extension for what we do with Microsoft is not just on quote unquote the lift and shift, but also the container space, because we will also be integrating with Azure Arc. So if you're looking at containerization, looking at Arc as a means to build portability between private and public, being Azure for containers, what we built with Karbon clusters and what Microsoft has Azure Arc will both be seamless, will be another seamless experience. So that's another area where as customers start dabbling in containerization and looking at Azure as a possible partner for that, we are partnering with Azure on that as well. So a lot of legs to that partnership that we can go detail further in as that partnership matures.
Cool. Well, I know we're really excited about that. One quick comment, and then Jim, I don't know if anything to close up as we come up on time, but Steve authored a book, the ROI story, and he mentioned that, and it's something that the Jim's grabbed a lot of copies of, and it's something that we've shared, maybe as some of you that might be joining us today, just as something to what we love about the book and what Steve put together is just how objective it is. It's fact-based. And yes, Steve's with Nutanix, and obviously we feel strongly that Nutanix has a significant value to help our customers simplify their environment. But the information is very factual, and it's very truthful, and just hopefully a valuable guide to help IT leaders with discerning the best decisions for your organization and supporting your applications and your workforce. So. We will be sending out a link to a copy of the book, or we can certainly get a physical copy of the book out to you if you'd like to receive a copy of that. So that's the only comment I want to make. And Jim, I don't know if you want to close this out.
No, just with wrapping up, like I said earlier, Choice Solutions is always around bringing financial value with game-changing solutions with simplicity and automation. And Pi and Steve done a great job of that again today to deliver on what we're all about. And I love that word choices, because that's Pi keeps bringing up choices, and it really is. It's about bringing choices to customers. Anytime I talk to the CEOs, I said, look, anytime you make a decision today that locks you in tomorrow's decision, that's a bad decision, because you no longer have your future flexibility, and people hate that. That's the beauty about what these two guys shared about, the flexibility that you continue to own in the future. So with that, we really appreciate it. And thank you guys all. And, let's all have a great season.
Thank you, everybody.